People often say a single voice can change a room, but no one expected his voice to stop an entire crowd. It happened on a cold evening, under a flickering streetlight, where hundreds rushed past without seeing him. A thin, tired man holding an old microphone connected to a tiny speaker taped together with hope and worn-out wire. Most people didn't even look up. Some dropped coins without slowing. Some pretended he wasn't there. But then, right as the wind picked up and swept dust across the pavement, he began to sing. And everything changed. His voice wasn't loud. It wasn't polished. But it carried something rare, something raw, something honest. A trembling truth wrapped in a sound that felt like an entire lifetime poured into one note. People stopped mid-step. A child tugged on her mother's arm, pointing. A girl filming on her phone lowered it, stunned. Even a taxi driver rolled down his window, forgetting the meter ticking away. For the first time in hours, the man lifted his eyes. He thought people were staring out of pity. But no. They were staring because they were moved. He kept singing. His voice carried years of struggle, quiet dreams, and promises he once made to someone he loved. Promises he couldn't keep. Not because he didn't want to, but because life has a way of breaking the strongest people in the softest places. He wasn't always on the streets. Once, long ago, he stood in a school auditorium wearing a borrowed suit 2 sizes too big. His teacher had told him, "You have something rare. Don't hide it." That night, when he finished singing his graduation song, the whole room rose to their feet. His mother cried openly, clutching her chest like her heart might burst from pride. He remembered that moment every night. It kept him warm when winter didn't. It kept him alive when loneliness tried to hollow him out. Tonight, this moment under the streetlight, felt almost like that long ago night. But this time, something was different. As he finished a long, soaring note, his voice cracked, not from weakness, but from overwhelming feeling. And in that fragile crack, the world heard the truth. This wasn't just a song. It was a confession. A life story. A quiet surrender mixed with fierce hope. A hope that maybe, just maybe, someone out there still believed in him. A young man in a business suit stepped forward, tears at the edges of his eyes. He didn't know the singer. He didn't know the story. But he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Kindness pulling him toward a stranger. He asked softly, "Sir, what's your name?" The singer hesitated. He hadn't heard anyone ask that question with sincerity in a long time. "My name," he whispered. Then, with a small, humble smile, "It's Elias." The young man breathed in sharply, almost startled. As if he recognized the name. But before he could speak again, more people gathered. Phones rose. Cameras rolled. Someone shouted, "Sing another one." Elias lowered his gaze, unsure. He wasn't used to being wanted. He wasn't used to being seen. But then a little girl stepped forward, holding a tiny paper cup with warm tea. She offered it with both hands and said, "Your voice, it feels like sunshine." Elias's lips trembled. No one had said something that gentle to him in years. He took the cup carefully, as if it were something precious. Then he looked up at the waiting crowd. Faces glowing under the yellow streetlight. Faces full of emotion he never expected to awaken. In that moment, Elias realized something powerful. People weren't listening to a perfect singer. They were listening to a man who still believed in goodness. Even after the world forgot his name. He lifted the microphone again, just a little. His fingers shook. His heart pounded. But his voice, that fragile, beautiful voice, rose again. This time, louder. Stronger. Braver. And as the first note echoed through the night, the young man in the suit whispered under his breath. It can't be, after all these years. It's really him. The crowd leaned in. The moment sharpened. The world held its breath. Because no one knew that the most unbelievable part of the story was still about to unfold. When the second song ended, a soft hush settled over the crowd. It wasn't silence from confusion. It was the kind of silence that happens only when hearts are opening. When people feel something they can't quite name. Elias lowered the microphone slowly, breathing in the cool air. He wasn't used to applause, but tonight, people clapped like they were cheering for someone they had known forever. A few stepped closer to place coins and small bills in his old tin cup. But Elias didn't look at the money. His eyes wandered upward to the sky. A habit he had formed long ago whenever he missed someone deeply. "Dad, promise me you'll sing again someday." Her voice echoed through his memory like a gentle melody. Lily. His daughter. The reason he worked long nights. The reason he walked miles every day. The reason he kept going even when his body begged him to stop. He remembered her tiny hands tugging his sleeve. As she showed him her first school certificate. She had stood on a small stage wearing a paper crown. Proudly pointing to the audience where Elias sat alone. Cheering louder than anyone. He remembered the day she turned 16. And surprised him with a cake she made herself. It was lopsided. Too much sugar. But he ate every piece with a full heart. Because she had saved her lunch money to buy the ingredients. He remembered the morning she left home. To chase a future bigger than the walls that held them. She hugged him tightly, whispering, "You gave up so much for me, someday I'll give something back." But she never knew the truth behind his sacrifices. He had not told her about the nights he skipped meals so she wouldn't go hungry. He had never mentioned the time he sold his old guitar. The one he cherished since his own childhood. Just to pay her exam fees. She didn't know the reason he stopped performing years ago. Wasn't because he lost passion. But because he lost time. Elias worked wherever he could. Cleaning warehouses, sweeping staircases, carrying heavy boxes. Anything that could keep her dreams alive. Music didn't leave him. He left it, quietly, gently, the way a father leaves a warm room. So his daughter can sleep peacefully without knowing the storms outside. Tonight, singing under the streetlight felt like stepping into a forgotten doorway. The kind he once closed to protect her future. But once he stepped through, memories flooded back. Stronger than the cold wind brushing against his cheeks. A woman approached, wrapped in a heavy coat. Her voice quivered slightly as she spoke. "Mister, I don't know what your story is. But your voice, it carries something special. It feels like you've lived 100 lives." Elias smiled faintly, grateful but shy. He had learned long ago that kindness from strangers often came when he least expected it. More people gathered. Some filmed on their phones. Some simply watched with gentle eyes. A few whispered among themselves, trying to understand how a man who looked so tired could sing like someone who had touched both joy and heartbreak in equal measure. The young man in the suit, the one who had recognized something in Elias, stepped closer again, studying his face carefully. "Sir," he said softly, "were you ever a performer? You sing like someone who once belonged on a big stage." Elias shook his head. He didn't want to share too much. Life had humbled him, taught him that stories weren't always believed, unless spoken by people who looked like they had success. "I used to sing," he finally whispered. "But life had other plans." The young man swallowed hard. "I know who you are," he murmured. But Elias didn't hear him. He was lost in a sudden wave of fatigue, his strength slipping as memories pressed harder against his heart. He held the microphone tighter, unwilling to let the moment end. He wanted, just once more, to feel what it meant to be heard. So he lifted the microphone again. And as he did, a car screeched to a stop at the end of the block. A door slammed. Running footsteps echoed between the buildings. A familiar voice, breathless, hopeful, breaking. "Dad! Dad, don't stop. I'm here." Elias froze. His heart stumbled. It couldn't be. But as the crowd turned to look, there she was. Lily. Older now, stronger, eyes filled with emotion. She had returned. And the night, already magical, was about to change in a way no one could have imagined.